Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back in War Thunder and it's time to talk about the rank 2 of the ground vehicles for China. Now this video was supposed to be out last Friday, and the reason why it wasn't is because, well, to be honest, after going through rank 2 of China and playing a lot of very similar vehicles to what I've played before, I kind of lost my mojo, if I'm honest. If you have a look at both of my trees, you can see that I spaded the whole rank 2 of China and just kind of left it here. Then also with the aviation side, I spaded all of rank 2 here and just kind of stopped. And, well, I will be pushing forward to make sure to go through rank 3, but the main reason why this video is late is because I am just finding it very hard to keep interested in the Chinese right now. And the reason for this is, if you have a look at rank 2, you've got an M5A1, which is a straight copy from the American one, apart from it doesn't get scouting. Then you've got an M24 Chaffee, which is a copy, and, well, we'll go through them individually. But just understand that my general feelings are kind of down now on this tree right now, just because I'm having a ton of similar experiences I've already had before. And the problem with this is it's very hard for me to play new things when they're not new. And the only thing that's really clinging me onto this right now is the hope that, you know, places such as this area here, such as the Type 59, Type 69, stuff like the PT-76 and the Type 63 are a little bit more fun because, you know, they're a little bit more high tier, and also they should have some nice stuff around them. But also, looking at this bit here is just like, well, I know a lot of these vehicles are pretty bad, especially in this lineup, and I know that these are not particularly meta, so therefore it's just going to be a struggle. Like I'm definitely feeling the struggle going through this territory right now, even though, you know, I was technically ready on Friday. I just didn't want to touch it again since then. So one thing to also talk about is when I spaded all of these vehicles, I had the M4A175 ground out, and I also had the Hellcat ground out. The PT-76 I had about halfway, and the reason why it's fully sped out now is because I was actually trying to spade the M4A175 just to try and not numb the mind. So if I just spaded this rank 2, then I would have just been left with 2 vehicles to play, and I would have been playing a lot of more 3.7 to get this thing done up, because its research costs seem to be quite high. Or maybe it's just there's a lot of modifications, who knows. But yeah, I'm basically stuck in this doldrum where I've already spaded a bunch of vehicles, and I'm just sat here while playing, you know, this 75 along with it. And then I'll go up to 5.3 with the PT-76 and the M18. So let's get started. The first tank to look at is the Stewart. Now, the Stewart is a fun vehicle. It's an incredibly good vehicle, great reload, it's got a good gun, very punchy. Only thing it really lacks is a HE filler, but with the penetration that it has, you can just keep plinking and plonking at the enemy and just doing a decent damage over time. It also has 2 7.62s, which is nice. No 50 cal, which is definitely not the best thing, but, you know, overall it's alright. It's also got a 4-man crew. What will happen quite a lot of the times with this machine is you'll get popped in the turret and you'll be able to run away. So that's really lovely, you know. It's got good reverse, it's got good traverse, it's got good speed forward. It's a fun little light tank, and since the 2.3 lineup at for China is, you know, it's kind of good. You know, you got the LVT, which is okay, it's good tank destroyer, can be upted. SU-76 is garbage, but the Chiha Kai and the M3A3 is generally quite fun, so therefore you can run it as that dominant light tank in your lineup. The only issue with it is, as I said before, it doesn't have scouting. So it's kind of odd. There is a bug report out there saying that it doesn't have scouting. I don't know whether this was a change which they wanted to make, but the thing is, it is very odd seeing the same vehicle in a different tree, but it's just worse than its other equivalent. And just to show you, with the US, the M5A1, which sits here, you can see that it has the scouting modification. So you've got airstrike and improved optics. If machines have these, it means they have scouting. Now that is just not the case for this M5A1. Hopefully that gets changed. The next vehicle is the Chaffee. This is my fourth time grinding out the same Chaffee. The only difference is, of course, an APCR round. If you don't believe me, we've got the M24 Chaffee here, which is a rank 3 vehicle for America, but for some reason it's just a rank 2 one for the Chinese. And then you've got the M24 TL, which is, of course, the Thunder League one. The difference between this one and the normal Chaffee is that this gets access to APCR, so, you know, it can be updated a little bit better. It also gets access to all of the Thunder League skins, which is really nice. And then, of course, what you have is the Japanese Chaffee, which is sat here, which is exactly the same as the one in the tech tree for the Americans. So, you know, nothing different there at rank 3. And then you've got this rank 2 Chaffee, which is exactly the same. So this is technically my 4th time grinding out the Chaffee. Is it a fun vehicle? Yes, it's got good speed behind it. The addition of scouting just gives it a separate thing that you can use. You know, you're able to, instead of be that aggressive machine all the time, instead you can kind of just sit back and scout. And this is really required when you run into some of the bruisers of the tier. The thing about being 3-3, because of the lineup that you have around it, generally you're going to up tier it to 3-7 alongside, you know, these two behemoths here. So therefore, 3-7, you start running into some interesting heavies. So you got stuff like the KV1 L11. Let's just change that to realistic. And then you can get up tiered in stuff like the ZIS-5, which have pretty decent armor. And the only place to really touch this thing, you know, in a bad way, is basically here with the Chaffee. So because you have scouting, because you have decent mobility, you can actually use it as that, you know, light scout tank instead of having to use it as an actual, you know, brawler. But overall, the Chaffee is really fun. You know, it's got good stabilization on the gun. It's also got a variety of different rounds. The M61 shot is the one to go for. It's got the standard 75 that you can find on the majority of Shermans, and you can see it does have the stabilizer. So that is, you know, something to look out for. It's not the best, but at lower speeds, you know, if you want to put it into gear 1, it is really nice to do. Oh god. The other thing as well with it is it does have the 50 cal on top, so dealing with stuff like Pumas, you know, STKFCs and 2344s, stuff like that, a lot better to do with a machine like a Chaffee instead of something else. So overall, it's a bog standard good light tank, which you can up to well. It's just very boring, the fact that I've played it through 4 times now. Then we have the SU-76. For me, I've never liked the SU-76, and this is my 3rd time having to play it and spade it. And this is a machine, a tank destroyer, which is based on a chassis which feels way too, well, maybe it's not the chassis, because it's actually quite light. The issue is the engine power. So the SU-76 has this system where it has 2 engines in it, and you can see them here. They're sat in tandem, 140 horsepower overall. This drives the transmission, and then the transmission obviously drives both tracks. The SU-76, because of this, when you don't have upgrades like the engine, which gives you nearly 10 horsepower, transmission 5 horsepower, and then filters 5 horsepower. So overall, you're looking at like 18 to 20 horsepower here, which is a big difference for this machine. It's incredibly slow, it's incredibly sloppy, and that means that getting to the battlefield first, especially remember when you have stuff like Stewart's running around, because of course they're incredibly quick and nippy, and also Pumas and stuff like that, it makes this machine incredibly annoying to use. Because the gun on it, you know, the gun's pretty good. Its armor penetration isn't the best, but with the mid-8 fuse, you know, you can get up to 94 millimeters. It's got great HE filler. It can annihilate whatever it touches, but it has a long reload of 9 seconds. It doesn't have a turret, so you are limited in traverse. You don't have any armor, meaning that this is only 25 millimeters, and also the breach itself is only 10 millimeters, so you can actually go through the breach and kill the gunner behind it, and also kill this breach, which is only 1 millimeter thick, which I feel is a bit of a problem. So what will happen is you'll face against an enemy, if they miss with their main gun, then they'll just shoot you with machine guns, knock out your breach, or knock out your gunner, who is incredibly cramped in this area because he's just sat here, and well, you'll just die because there's not a lot you can do. Other times they'll just shoot you in this front plate. They'll knock out either your driver or hit your engine or hit this massive fuel tank, which will set on fire, and you'll just burn to death if you are stock. If you're spaded, you'll have FPE, and they'll have to shoot you 3 times before you die. So overall, I really am not a fan of the Su-76M. One of the nice additions to the game that I did like as an event vehicle was the Su-85, you know, the A, this version. And it isn't just because of the gun, because the gun is really fun, right? But this engine is just a lot better. You know, it's a lot bigger. It seems to give out a little bit more when it comes to just totting around. So therefore, it's just nicer playing that machine. Another problem that the Su-76 has is the lack of gun depression. You know, only -3, and also sometimes you can just be in scenarios where, like, it's hard to say, but early rank 2, late rank 1, what normally dominates is either autocannons or really fast vehicles. So Stewart's, Panzer IIs, not Aufklärungs Panzers, but stuff like the STKFC 141 and machines like this, you know, fast, maneuverable vehicles. The Su-76 is the antithesis to that, which is why it just gets annihilated. It's not fun to play. It really isn't. Then you've got the M4A4, bog standard, you know, vanilla medium tank of 3.7, does its job great. It's got the same 75 that's on the Chaffee, you know, has access to the M61 shot with over 100 millimeters of pen, which is lovely. I've had a decent time in this. It's been really fun to use it, but it is just another Sherman, you know. If you've ever played Shermans before, it's very, very similar. The armor profile doesn't seem that different, you know. You might be used to the chassis, which is used on a few of the other vehicles. It's got this little bit of extra armor, but if you know about that extra armor, you know where to shoot. And most machines at this level can shoot straight through the Sherman, but with good angling, you know, you can bounce a decent amount of shots, and its gun is, you know, pretty much serviceable. It's got a good reload on it, it's got good gun depression, speed is a little bit lackluster on the acceleration, but it's not terrible, and it's also got a crew of 5, so if your turret gets knocked, you know, you're still in the fight because you've got these 2 lads here. Another thing to note, though, which isn't very nice, is the fact that the premium version is exactly the same as the Tech Tree version, apart from it gets a 50 cal on the top. And for me, it may be a small example of it, but we do have a very small example of what would be classed as pay to win here. You know, your M4A4, your premium one, yes, it has this ridiculous camouflage on it, but at the same time, it has the 50 cal on the top, meaning that it is more combat effective than the one that you have in the Tech Tree. So that is something which has to be noted. It would be nice if the M4A4 in the Tech Tree got a 50 cal. There is no reason why it shouldn't have a 50 cal. It's exactly the same vehicle. So yeah, and that does make a bit of a difference against planes, since one of the problems that China has right now, if you have a look at this tier, there's no AA. And we know that AAs are coming, you know, in maybe the next few updates or maybe the next year or so. But at this moment of recording, there are no AAs at this tier, and there were no AAs in the first tier. But at this tier, you're starting to get stuff which has decent bomb loads, you're starting to get stuff which can strafe pretty well, and therefore, it's kind of annoying that you don't have a 50 cal on one of your, you know, your main medium tanks. Actually, no, both your main medium tanks with the T-34 as well. So that is a problem. Personally, when it comes to it. So yeah, overall though, very good vehicle. Tank-on-tank combat, just struggles in the air game. Then we've got the T-34-43. This thing is a monstrosity in the making. It's just a wonderful machine, and it is slightly different than the one in the Soviet tree. This one's the 1942, and this one's the 1943. I literally cannot find any other difference apart from that. Maybe it's got a slightly different shell to it or something like that, but they act exactly the same. There is really no reason not to, you know, there's really no reason to see a difference. They seem exactly the same. But anyway, so you get the add-on armor, which is nice. The T-34's armor generally is quite trolley, especially on the front. Been shot in the front a lot of times by this, and because of this upper glacis, kind of pings off a lot. The place to shoot a T-34, if you don't know, is here. If you can hit it, where it's 55, and what this does is explodes into the turret and annihilates it. Or if you can't shoot there, you shoot here. to be able to knock out the gunner who was behind. And if you have good penetrating rounds, just shoot here and make it explode upwards. So those are the three areas that you shoot the T-34. If it's looking at you, you shoot either here or here. So that's how to deal with this. I've had a lot of people shoot my T-34 and nothing happen, which is kind of odd. This is the main vehicle at 3.7. It's a very good one. The only place it really lacks is gun depression. Its rounds are incredibly good. 94 millimeters of penetration, but the HE seems to just annihilate anything it touches. It's got, it's got all of the nice medium tank stuff. It's got the artillery. Of course, it doesn't have a top gun, which kind of sucks, but it is one of the easiest tanks in the world to play, and you can see that by, well, my KD. 47 ground kills and 14 deaths, and 75 win rate. Basically, just walking over teams with this, and it was kind of like that with this machine, and then just backed up with the M4A4. It's a great machine, really fun, good mobility, really pretty good armor, especially if you get down to it, but it wasn't fun. And this is what I mean. Like, if a lot of people, they'll look at those stats, and the only vehicle so far I think I'm negative in is the Su-76, and that's only by 1 kill. Maybe some of these lower ones I'm negative in or equal in, like, well, the CW. Well, actually, no, the CW I have more air kills than deaths. But stuff like the T-34 1943, it's like, okay, well, we're looking at like a 3.5 to 4 to 1, so you're pretty much going around, you're doing your job pretty well, and you've got a really high win rate. And it's like, yeah, but it's not fun. I've already done it. It's I've already done it in the Soviet tree. If we have a look at my T-34 in this one, like, obviously we've got the D5T, but stuff, let's see, can we find it? Let's just take this out. It's just, maybe it's a problem that I personally have. Maybe that is a thing. But there's my T-34 5743, so that's the premium one. And because a lot of people have said, it's going to be fun grinding out this new tree, and I'm like, no, not really. So there you go, 11 ground kills, 7 deaths. This was really early on when ground forces first came out. I don't think I've touched it since. But the thing is, it's like, no, it's not fun just walking around one-shotting people with a vehicle you know really well. Like, if they decided to put this machine in, like, the Japanese tree, I'd be as annoyed. So, yeah, my stats are good. It's really easy to play. It's really fun, but holy hell was it boring. Then the next one and the last one is the M10. This is the third time I've had to grind out something like this. You've got the M10, which is in the American tree. It's at rank 2 right here. Then you've got the British Achilles, which is similar to it, apart from it's got the 17-pounder on it, but it's pretty much exactly the same how it works. It might actually be worse because of the AP shell. So yeah. Then, of course, you've got stuff from Italy, like the M36, but obviously that's more like the M36. Oh no, France has got an M10, doesn't it? Hello, I didn't even bother grinding this one out because of what I said before. So there you go. I've ground this out 3.5 times, if you want to include the British one. And I believe there's also a British premium Achilles as well, but I don't think I have that. So there you go. You've you've got nearly five of the same vehicle. Wonderful. So yeah, the M10, if you don't, well, there is actually a difference. There is a difference between this one and the American one. This one you get add-on armor stock, so it's technically better for the stock grind, so, that's good. But apart from that, it's exactly the same vehicle. The problem, well, the M10 has great characteristics. It's got the 50 cal on top, which is great against planes. It's good against light targets. It's in a nice place, and also it has kind of trolley armor. This gun shield here will bounce a hell of a lot more than you'll be used to, and also the tracks will eat stuff that you are also not used to. So killing it is not, the easiest thing to do. Is it easier to kill than something like a T-34? Yes, but something like an M4A4, I'd probably say is pretty similar in the killability stat. Then, as I said, the gun is great. The 76 at 3.7 with nearly 150 millimeters of pen. You can go through anything. You can eat, KVs. You can eat any of the bigger targets that you're going to find. And then, if you don't want to use the well, here's a problem, right? So with the changes to the Damar formula, with the addition of the Damar formula put into the game, you've now made stuff like the M79 shot completely useless. So there is going to either be a swaparoo or a workout for it. So the M62 shell that you get stock gives you 150 millimeters of pen, gives you explosive mass, gives you everything you need. Whereas the M79 gives you less pen, no explosive mass, and exactly the same other characteristics. So same muzzle velocity and everything. So there's no reason to take the M79, but it also costs, whereas the M62 doesn't. So that has to be at least thought about, when it comes to this game, and I would probably swap those shells around. So if you wanted to keep the same progression, right now it just makes it easier to spade. So that's really nice, but it is how it is. So with the M10, you've got the -10 gun depression as well. The problem is the turret rotation. 3.3 degrees per second is awful. And remember, this is with the horizontal drive upgrade. If you actually uninstall this, it goes down to 2.8 degrees per second. Incredibly slow. Now, imagine if you have an engine out, and your batteries run out, and you don't have the horizontal drive thing. This thing just ain't moving. It already isn't moving that much. So what you have to do is you have to traverse to be able to try and push about this thing to get its turret turned. And the problem with that is, well, its gun isn't really stable enough. So let's say I want to shoot over there, I do that to turn, and then it takes a while to set up the gun. While you have machines like the T-34 at this level, you have machines like the Sherman at this level, which have stabilizers, and the T-34 doesn't have a stabilizer, but it definitely feels like it has a damn stabilizer. And then you have stuff like the KV and others, or stuff like the Cheeto, which are much more malleable than you are because of the fact that the gun is way more stabilized. So therefore you're sat in positions where if you run into a target and you have to turn to shoot them, it's not going to end well for you. So this is how slow the turret goes. I'm not even sure if the turret gets affected by the engine out. Let's see, actually. I mean, maybe a little bit. I'm guessing it's a percentage, but it doesn't seem to be that affected. Maybe it's so slow they thought, you know what, we'll keep off of it right now. But yeah, the M10 overall is out of the 3.7s that you have. If you get up tiered, maybe you take it first because of the gun. But the main thing is it's not as good as these two at the BR. So what I would actually do is either you bring in the M4A1 for it, this one in rank 3. So therefore you've got a 3 medium tank lineup, you've got artillery, you've got at least a 50 cal with this, you've got a really good bruiser lineup. It's a very fun lineup to do with the 75s and of course the 76. Or what you do is you drop it down and you bring in the Chaffee in place of it, and therefore just leave the M10 out. So yeah. It's as simple as that. I don't think the M10 makes the cut out of this wonderful 3.7 lineup. You would either replace it with the Chaffee or the 75. So as you can see, like mostly positive vehicles. These four here are great. The Su-76 I have no love for, and the M10 has its problems, but it's still got a good gun. So overall, it's they're good vehicles. They're vehicles which you can do really well in. You can stomp games, and they're pretty much picked the Soviets and the American vehicles that are really good, apart from the Su-76, and stuck them in the Chinese tech tree. So you can do great in them. But I've already played all these, and some of them I've played nearly 4 or 5 times over and over. And for me, that's just not fun. And maybe it's because I play older nations. Maybe a person who is new to the game. If somebody's new to the game, I'd recommend them playing either Germany or China right now, just because of the fact that in China you get a little spice of everything, and in Germany it's the same thing. If you want to try different aspects of the game, Germany's really nice for that. It's got pretty much a little bit of everything. China is the same. So maybe for a new player this is great, but for me, who's already ground out all these vehicles multiple times, it's not. It's kind of tedious, and all I'm looking at is this rank 3 area and going, well, I've already played this, you know, it was a gift vehicle. Didn't have to spare it though, so that's going to be different. Played this to death because of the events. These two are just T-3485s, so I know how they are. This is a weird combination, and then the PT-76 is just the B without a stabilizer, so that's crap. And then the ISU-152, which is just not a very good machine. So yeah, bit of a struggle. Even though, at least right now, it feels like I'm playing meta vehicles, I've already played them, and it's not that fun. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Mopar 1969, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, and Eel of Goats, and of course Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.